Jon Simmonds from Rocket Science Digital, who's going to tell us all about what him and his team are doing over there and how they're supporting businesses to excel online. So, John, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Good to be here, Lucas.
Very good. So just get started, basically. Tell me about the company. What is it all about?
So Rocket Science is a social media marketing agency. We work on paid social and organic social across all the major platforms. We do both B2C and B2B. Most of our audience at the moment, most of our customers are B2B, but that's sort of purely accidental. We just acquired a number of big B2B customers. Business has been going for about 4.5 years now. Originally started out sort of as more of an integrated agency, but we very quickly sort of focused in on where our strengths were and became a social media marketing agency.
Very good. And when you say B2B, are we talking about very particular verticals here? Is then, do you have a specific niche that you're focusing on, or how did that evolve?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, we again, historically we've got clients across a whole range of sectors, but we're sort of focusing very much these days on two areas. One is tech companies. We work with businesses sort of in the AI space, e-learning, big data, any kind of, a lot of the emerging technologies are really good for us as well, because they kind of get social a lot more than some of the more historical tech companies, perhaps. And the other side of the offering is agencies. So we work with creative branding, PR agencies, which is sort of the complete opposite in a way of the tech companies. But we had a lot of conversations last year with agencies who were saying that they had worked with clients, who the agencies would produce great work for the clients. Clients couldn't prove an ROI on the work, so they never came back for more. And the agency saw an opportunity to use those creative assets and those brand campaigns through social media to get a lot more use out of the assets and prove an ROI. So we developed an agency model whereby we will work with agencies as kind of an outsourced social media partner that they can offer to their clients to broaden their offering. So two sort of distinct areas that we focus on.
Very interesting and very, very focused, actually, what you're describing there. And where do you guys start and where do you stop? Because you mentioned you focus on social media as sort of like the superpower. Like where would, if I'm a listener running a business, like where does your services start and where do they stop? In the sense of at the lead level, at the conversion level, at the traffic level, like where do you consider you guys being active?
It varies really depending on clients. So we have some clients for whom we start off, we help them develop a social media strategy and work through user personas and customer targeting, because strangely a lot of our customers that come to us haven't actually done any sort of user profiling work yet. And then we'll carry that through all the way to sort of lead generation for a lot of the businesses. And in case of things like Facebook ads, for example, a lot of the businesses we follow through to the conversion level. And our answer goes conversion. That said, we have other clients where their main criteria is basically building awareness. So what we will do for them is we manage their organic social media. We make sure that their business is represented in the way they want, and that the tone of voice comes across and the content comes across. And it's really just that's much more focused in on just building the ethos of the brand and getting the word out there. So it really comes down to we can do the full end-to-end or any element of that fits a specific client's brief, or often the budget as well.
Very interesting, very interesting. So you really sort of it's a little bit varying where you start and stop depending on the particular use case there, it sounds like.
Exactly, yes, tailored to the customer.
Very good. How would a typical, software business owner or marketer find you guys? Like, how would you describe the journey from me being a software, maybe marketer or business owner, to start working with Rocket Science?
I'm happy to say a lot of our work comes through recommendations and referrals from existing clients, which is as kind of the great thing for any business, isn't it? If your existing clients will recommend you, so a lot comes through that way. We get a fair bit of business through Google searches for social media for technology, because there are not that many social media businesses I'm aware of out there who sort of focus in that specific area. Mm-hmm. So again, we were kind of that niching has helped us. And we also do, I do a lot of work on, particularly through LinkedIn, in sort of, lead generation work in a very, kind of, we approach that in the same sort of way that we approach work for clients. So it's more in a relationship building way rather than a, kind of salesy way, because I think, people are tired of that now, really. So we do a lot of work on building relationships through LinkedIn and then developing, those over time, so that people understand what our offering is, see a bit of what we can do. We like to put out, good value-added content on our social channels, and so that grows over time as well.
Very good. Anything that you learned, because you mentioned sort of, on LinkedIn, this relationship-driven approach, anything that you maybe learned over time as well that was particularly helpful for you in terms of, LinkedIn lead generator?
Yeah, drop the selling. Definitely drop the selling. I think, whenever anyone starts trying to promote their business on LinkedIn, the temptation is there to go out and either send out some connection requests and straight away say, hey, look, I've got this amazing case study or white paper or something. Do you want to see it? Which people don't, and also, I think with the posting and the updates, make sure that what you're doing is adding value to the business. Yes, there's obviously a place for the posts that say, look, this is what we do. If you want to know more, get in touch. But the majority of that content, 70 to 80%, has to be putting things out there that people will be interested in, and then, looking at who responds to that and how they respond, and picking up on comments and starting a conversation. Just don't go out there and try and sell, because particularly since the whole sort of coronavirus crisis kicked in, people are just not interested in a hard sell anymore.
Yeah. What I actually noticed with this is you can actually, by the structure of this text, already tell if it's a real one or if it's a sales pitch. You look at the first word, you look at the last word, and then if there is too much space in the middle, and you already know what it is.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. People are wise to it now, aren't they? So yeah, totally.
Very good. What role would the website play for your overall lead generation? You mentioned referrals and LinkedIn quite a bit, but how would you describe the role of your website in that sort of, client generation setup?
Yeah. Well, interestingly, our website is very much a supporting vehicle to the other channels. It's if I think about the amount of leads that have actually come directly in through the website over our 4.5 years, it's a very tiny handful compared to the leads that we get from elsewhere. But I always look at our website as, that's the repository where, when people want to find out more about what we do, they can go there, take a look, and we try and make sure that there's, a really understandable set of content on there that tells you, what the services are we offer. And then they'll come back to either LinkedIn or email or whatever directly. And this is where, I think one thing that I'm always keen to do is to run more SEO on our website, because, I know that as a supporting vehicle, it's very important. And that, the more people find that, the better.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
And you mentioned B2B software. SEO is like a niche that you sort of kind of exploring for yourself there. Very interesting. Very good. So what I would like to do is learn a little bit more about once you start working with your clients. And we talked about conversions a little bit. Maybe can you share a war story, like where you learned something surprising about conversions, something that you maybe wouldn't have expected, something where you think, okay, this is maybe a way we were able to increase conversions. Is there a story that you could share with us?
Yeah, one of our sort of big clients, it's almost the opposite in a way. They have a very comprehensive program of blog posting, and they're a technical business, and they write both technical blog posts and sort of insights blog posts that talk about the industry landscape and how their products fit into that, and broader topics. We sort of thought that. They said that obviously this is great content to put out there, and I had expected the blog posts to do really well. With a lot of clients, blog content is key, and you put the blog content out, you post this stuff, and that's where a lot of your conversations will start. And these guys produce very good content. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the content, but it just wasn't converting. It wasn't doing anything. And we tried everything we could with the social channels to try and pick that up. And what was really interesting was that all of a sudden the technical content was the stuff that was taking off, not the the insight stuff. The insights content was very good, but it just wasn't resonating for whatever reason. And once we targeted that and turned it around a bit and really started appealing to the techies, we realized that the guys that were really soaking this up weren't, as they'd originally thought, kind of the thought leaders and the CEOs and the guys at the top who were saying, well, look, we need to do this, we need to do stuff with our data. How do we do that? It was the guys in the engine room who were looking day in, day out at what was being done with the business's data and systems and stuff. And they were the ones who were then recommending upwards, this is what we should be looking at. And they had a huge part to play in that decision-making process. So, then turning that around and focusing on making sure we were putting that content out specifically to those audiences, it was really interesting. It was completely opposite of what we and they had expected to see at the time.
Very interesting and super interesting insight that people can take away quite a bit from. I would be curious, working with your clients, can you tell me how you are sort of looking at the analytics side of things? Because I'm assuming you have very advanced clients, right? So it's not necessarily local businesses. You have a lot of SaaS companies or software companies there. Like, what's your approach to keeping them up to date on the data, giving them the insights? How do you deal with that?
It's always interesting with social, because the one thing that you find is there's no one analytics platform out there that can give you everything you need. And if you look at the native analytics on the platforms, for example, what you're going to get out of Instagram compared to Twitter, compared to LinkedIn, very, very different. And trying to pull that together in a comprehensive report and make sense of it is quite tough. So we started out by building very manual reports and kind of pulling data from the different systems and putting it in. These days, I'm a big fan of Sprout Social, because we've done a lot of evaluation of the best tools for scheduling and reporting. And that kind of, for me, combines the two. It's very good on the scheduling side, it's good on the content discovery side, and it adds in things that are very hard to get from other channels. So that kind of helps to pull it all together. But when it comes down to it, we still spend a fair bit of time doing manual analysis, because again, when you're looking at content specific things, a lot of our clients want to know, obviously, what content is getting the best responses, what content is getting the best return. And a large percentage of that work comes down to someone sitting with a spreadsheet of what's being posted when, and looking at which hashtags have been used on the posts that got the most engagement, and all those kind of things. So there's still a big kind of personal intervention piece there.
Gotcha. Very good. Interesting. I would be curious, switching slowly from that, conversation about optimization, conversion analysis, going into a bit more sort of questions about you personally. My last question about that analytics and conversion side of things. How deeply are you integrated with those software companies in terms of, converting on the page? Because they might have, maybe a growth marketer, maybe a conversion specialist, maybe a general CMO. Like, how do you sort of work together to maximize the conversions? Like, when we talk about the right call to actions, like, is it a demo or is it a trial? Like, how much touch points do you have there, or is it sort of that you hand over at this point?
Again, it comes down to the client, but we do have quite a few clients where we carry out a lot of experimentation and a lot of testing. So generally we find, because the bigger clients obviously do all the web work in-house, they will build the landing pages themselves. We'll review them and tell them what we think from an optimization perspective. And then we'll build out a test plan. And we've got one big online training company at the moment who we're doing ongoing optimization with, because, as you say, things like calls to action, all that kind of stuff, make a very, very big difference. Some clients you find are very resistant to it, and they say, well, actually, this is our corporate thing, and that's the point at which we say, well, actually, in that case, we'll be responsible for driving traffic, but we can't be responsible for conversion because we've got no control. But most clients will put together a testing plan. And then that whole iteration of test, analyze, repeat, and feedback, and I would say 90% of clients are very open to that, because it's the kind of thing either they don't have the experience or don't have the time to do themselves.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that was what my question was aiming at. Like, sort of, if this opportunity emerges, and it definitely sounds like a testing plan that you're creating with your clients. They're very good.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's switch gears a little bit. Talk about you. We talk about you as a leader in the business. Maybe tell me at the very beginning, where do you educate yourself? Like, what is resources that you really trust in, where you sort of, over the years that you found to be a good resource for you?
Okay. I mean, I've been in digital. I started in digital best part 25 years ago now, before social media even genuinely even existed. So there've been a lot of places, along the way. I've got to be honest. The only real consistent source I find is peers, other people who I know who are working in the industry. We all know that the websites and the online publications which have got great information in, and consultancy is always a good place. Things like Social Media Examiner, these kind of things. And again, depending on the how in depth you want that information to be, there are a lot of places. But I spend a lot of time talking to other agency owners. Very fortunate that in the local area and a little bit further afield, there's a very good network who collaborate very happily. It's not kind of head-to-head, dog eat dog. Everyone's very happy to talk about what they're trying, what's working and what's not. So I find that a great place of doing it.
Please excuse the question. What about groups on social media? Since you guys are focused
on groups on social media, to be honest with you, Lucas, the quality varies wildly. So there are a lot of people on social media who do know what they're talking about. There are a lot of people on social media who think they know a lot more about what they're talking about. So it's always an interesting place. Actually, a great example is the whole discussion around LinkedIn hashtags. Everyone's talking about LinkedIn only looks at 3 hashtags. We've spoken to the guys at LinkedIn, and they will neither confirm or deny that. They can't really prove it. But there's so much conversation going on around it, and everybody's an expert. Our approach is kind of to look at those conversations, see what's going on, and then take it away and test it ourselves. And I think, they can be a great place for starting to find out about something, but never take it all as gospel truth.
Very good. What's a topic that you would have recently researched and really focused on?
Well, again, we're doing a lot of work with LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a very interesting place at the moment. And a really specific thing we're doing is, again, there's that whole discussion around how to expand your reach on LinkedIn, and whether, including links in your LinkedIn posts, it almost definitely does restrict the reach of your posts. But how do you get around that? And there are several theories around that. We're trialing and testing those at the moment. And that ties in very closely, yes, with the hashtag question as well. That's another one that we're keenly interested in, and looking both at our content and clients' content, at what impact that has, which is, again, where that measurement comes in.
Very good. As of the 20th May 2020, what's your best guess on what to do with the LinkedIn post on your current state? Link, no link?
From what we've seen so far, what seems to be working, I'm not 100% there yet, is write your update without a link in it, and then edit it to put the link back in. There's some very good research that suggests that's the way to do it. And I have to say, from what we're seeing so far, that's a good way of doing it. Some people will say put the link in the comments, but of course the issue you have there is LinkedIn will show people the most relevant comments rather than necessarily So, but yeah, I think try
any time delay that you should do there?
Again, we're testing it out at the moment. There doesn't seem to be. You seem to be able to do it, almost immediately afterwards, which is good, because obviously you don't want to post sitting around with no links in it for a long time. So.
Okay, very cool, very interesting. So I would sort of slowly coming to the end of the interview and wrap it up with a set of rapid fire questions. Are you ready for those?
Go for it.
Very good. For your company, what's the first thing that comes to mind when I say the word marketing operations?
Shoestring. We have done virtual of our marketing on a very tight budget, because we've tended to put the money into other places. It has to be slick and done on a tight budget.
Very good. What's the first thing that comes to mind when I say the word sales operations?
Personal.
Mm-hmm.
No big sales machine. It's people selling to people. It's people talking to people. It's people who are passionate about what they do, talking to other people who we believe we can help.
Very cool. What's one thing that comes to mind, what your company is focused on the very most at the moment?
Lead generation, new business. I think in the current climate, that's everybody's big thing, because, you know, like everybody else, we've had clients who've had to pause some work. I think everybody's out there trying to see where, you know, what's going to happen next, where the new business is coming from.
If there would be no boundaries in technology, what would be one thing that you want to have fixed for your clients today?
Oh man, I would love an all-round social media platform that can do reliable scheduling, have the built-in AI that tells you what kind of content is going to work, and actually gives you fully comprehensive reports across, you know, the major platforms. That would be the biggie.
And what's your best sort of next solution to that? Is that you mentioned Sprout Social, I think, at the very beginning. What's your next best solution to that?
Next best of that, I think, you know, for me, they're all fairly similar. You know, I think I'm not a bit. I was going to mention one I'm not a big fan of. I won't do that, just in case anybody's listening. But I think, you know, there are a lot of similarities between what's out there at the moment. There are some that are good and some that are bad, but I wouldn't really want to differentiate them too much. It's a bit mean.
Very good. What's the last thing that kept you awake at night about your company?
Well, I mean, that is the whole, you know, transitioning into lockdown, and really how clients are responding to that. Because for us, it's not a big deal. You know, we have to do a lot of remote working anyway, so that's all fine. We can manage. But a few of our clients have, you know, one of our big clients actually does a lot of work in their own clients are in the retail sector and the hospitality sector. So last thing that kept me awake at night really was looking at, you know, how to plug the gaps in our business that have been left by some of our clients having a hard time.
Very good. What's one advice? It's the last question, actually. If you would restart rocket science today, right? This is the first day you're running rocket science. What's one advice that you would give yourself?
Do business development and lead generation when you're too busy to do it. You know, it's so easy when you first start up. You get that big client in and you think, well, this is great and everything's going really well, and you're a very small operation and you're so focused on client delivery that there's no time to do, you know, lead gen and business development. And then something happens with that client and they're not there anymore and the revenue's not there anymore, and you are frantically trying to build up your client base.
What helped you in the very beginning, maybe as a small follow-up to this, what helped you in the very beginning? What were channels that worked for you when you sort of were starting out?
Networking, existing contacts, you know, going out to people that you'd worked with over the years who are now, you know, moved on to decision-making places in other businesses, and just getting back in touch, you know, letting them know what you're doing, letting them know that you started this business and you know, how you could help them. And you know, that I've spoken to so many, you know, startup business owners who say exactly the same thing, that network. So again, looking back historically, you know, if you're looking to start a business, make sure you're always being nice to people that you work with, because you never know when you're going to need them.
Guys, very good. There you guys, you have it. Jon from Rocket Science Digital, who shared with us what the guys are doing over there, how they're supporting particularly software and SaaS businesses as well as agencies with their social media basically processes down to actually generating more leads through those platforms and from the websites. And one tip from Jon, always be nice to the people. You never know when you meet them again. So Jon, thanks for being part of Platform Presents today.
Thank you, Luke. It's been a pleasure.